All right, I've been told the time is running, so I'm going to get started. Good morning, everyone. My name's Phil Nash, and I'm a developer evangelist for Twilio. I want to tell you a touch about Twilio before I get started, because I get to wear track jackets and look red and things like that. So good to give a quick introduction, because we're a cloud communications platform. That just means that we provide a platform for your applications to connect the people you care about using the tools, languages, and frameworks that you already know. I'm not here, of course, to talk about Twilio. Instead, I want to start this talk with a warning. And that warning is, there is going to be some live coding in this. Audible murmurs from the crowd. It's going to be okay, don't worry. What this means really is that you're all now pair programming with me. It's actually your fault as well as mine if it goes wrong. Basically, if you see a semicolon out of place, please give me a shout, because it's ultimately look a lot better if we don't end up with errors in the console. There is also going to be some, and I'm glad I'm first on because this is a joke that is running out of time. There's going to be some ES6 or ES 2015 or whatever we want to call these kind of things these days. There's going to be some new JavaScript stuff. I'm excited about all the new things, and I like to use them as they're coming up. And because this is a talk about fairly new stuff as well, I get to rely on a lot of kind of new, exciting things within browsers. And so there's going to be some new stuff, and I will call out the bits that I'm interested in and bits that I'm using as I go ahead and use them. There's going to be some audience participation. That's not just the shouting out about semicolons, but I actually need a bit of help from all of you in order to make some stuff happen within the demos in the talk. So I will let you know when that is required right now, but if you're on Twitter, then you're going to need your phones or laptops or whatever. So, the web is getting pushy. For me, this is kind of a discussion about web versus native. You might think that web and native are very different things and very, have different meanings and different uses. And I think I do too, but there's something about the idea of kind of the web against those native platforms that really does interest me, and how native applications have the ability to experiment, to go ahead and try things out. And then the web can kind of pick up and bring those things that have worked to the things that users use, things that people need, and bring it to a lot more people. And so for a long time we've been adding functionality to browsers for years. And so things like geolocation, for example, has been around for an awfully long time in browsers. You access to the accelerometer, so we can get all sorts of interesting data about how you can hold your device. Peer-to-peer video chat is a thing that we can do in a lot of browsers, in more than half of the used browsers in the world, without any plugins. It's an amazing, WebRTC is an amazing technology, and it's all available to us right now. But push notifications, the ability to make somebody's device make a phone buzz or push a notification to the screen is something that we have been missing in the web up until this year, and that's what I'm here to talk about, and here to show you kind of what I'm excited about and how this is going right now. And when I say push notifications, I'm just going to, my screen's gone slightly funny. There we go. When I say push notifications, I mean these lovely things up here. The exciting fact that perhaps somebody or a couple of your followers are now talking about Grey's Anatomy in this particular case. I don't know if you care about Grey's Anatomy. I know I don't. I don't know if Twitter is necessarily the best example of how to do push notifications, since they will notify you about anything. And I've tried to turn, there's checkboxes, turn it all off, it's fine. But the ability to have this notification on screen, to have that icon over the little logo, if you swipe through that, then you're opening up within the application. It's that kind of thing. As I work for Twilio, and we do SMS as one of our kind of products as an API, and so I'd probably be like, hey, maybe just send a text. That's cool, right? That's a way to notify your web users. But that I think is very much a stopgap. It's not what we want to do. It's not the same context as you could get out of a push notification like that. So that's why I think it's exciting for the web to be able to do this now. But I want to kind of draw it back slightly and just have a look at like notifications in general and how we've been able to do this on the web so far. So this is where we get to the kind of audience participation part, in that we're going to start a hashtag. Have you ever started a hashtag before? No one's tweeted this before as far as I'm aware. I'm going to be first. Because we're going into demo time, that's cool. And I want to, this is my app. It doesn't do much. It merely shows tweets with this hashtag. And as you can see, there aren't any right now. Although I've just sent one. And so I get to now play a game where I refresh the screen every now and again and wait for the Twitter REST API to catch up with things that are actually on Twitter. There we are, and actually Mike was first. There we go, right Mike, he's sat at the back giggling now because he's managed to make a tweet appear first. Good stuff. So that's all it does, right? We have tweets appear on the screen if I refresh the page. Not the most exciting application. Let's change that. Let's make that somewhat more interesting. This is the JavaScript for that application right now. There isn't any, as you can see. It's rather boring. There you go, I did actually send a tweet as well. Cool, yes, I did ask you to. Thank you for using the tweet. Cool, so what are we going to do? This application, yeah, doesn't do an awful lot. In fact, it's all kind of here. It's a Node application and does a lot of stuff. But what we have actually available to us is a streaming endpoint. This does server-sent events. And when we get a message on the Twitter streaming API, it gets sent out over that kind of server-sent events endpoint. So I'm going to create that server-sent events source on the on our browser, and I'm also going to grab the list of tweets that we have on the page. I have jQuery involved in this, mainly because I'm lazy and you don't want to watch me write DOM elements, DOM JavaScript, so that's what we have there. And so what happens is that stream can have an event listener, and I do miss an equal sign already. Thank you so much. That is wonderful. Thank you. I wish I had prizes to give for people who helped out, because you definitely get one. But I don't, so I guess I'll buy you a drink at the party later. Cool. So thank you. We're gonna add an event listener to our stream, and that's it listens for the message event, and that is fired every time we get a message off of that server-sent event stream. This is my first fancy new bit of JavaScript. We can now, in the version of Chrome I'm using, which is normal Chrome, I don't even use dev right now. It's not a beta or anything, but we have arrow functions, which is quite cool. I mean, they're very useful for pinning, so looking after the scope of JavaScript and this. But I'm really using it so I type less. I don't have to write out the whole word function. In that event, I'm getting some data, and so I'm just going to parse out the data from that, and now I have my message. And what I'm going to do is create myself a list item, which I'm going to add onto the list. This all seems fairly reasonable, right? This is the second bit of lovely new JavaScript I like, which is these backticks make a string, but they allow for multi-line strings and for string interpolation. So I can go and write out some HTML like this. What I'm basically creating is that list element with a new item, a new tweet that's come into the top, and I'm going to, oops, go ahead, and this is the wonderful string interpolation part. I can use dollar and curly braces to just interpolate, which is much nicer than the old style of like ending your string plus the thing, start a string again. That kind of string concatenation is awkward, and we now have much nicer stuff. I've done a lot of work in Ruby as well, and having string interpolation is just absolutely wonderful. So I've got that, I created myself a list element and added into that kind of just the from and the message that kind of matches what exists in the HTML. And then simply I'm going to prepend that to the list. Cool. So that's a very kind of rudimentary way of some more stuff. That's a very rudimentary way. Don't apologize, Mike. It's fine. Very rudimentary way of making that happen. But now, if we do send another kind of Topconf push tweet, we should see it appear on screen almost instantly. It's as instant as my phone has signal apparently. It's getting there. Anybody else could send one as well if you've got better signal than I have. It's sent. It's going to come through. It's going to come through. Have I received it? That's the question. Yes, I have. I broke something already. Fantastic. There we go. Event. New event source. Oh, good stuff. That'll be the last mistake. Somebody else, there we go, that's the kind of thing. We get a little flash of yellow and we have anything on screen. Much better. That says emoji test, but I don't see any emojis, so I guess I failed that one. Oh well. Cool. Basically, that's how we did notifications back when we had very little to do actually on the rest of the web, right? We have even before server-sent events, you could do kind of long polling or other kind of like poll to see if something happened. And you can make something happen just by just adding an element to the screen and making it flash. Probably, I mean that was a CSS flash, but we can JavaScript the whole thing. We've been doing that for a long time, and that works. But it doesn't help if, say, you have a bunch of tabs open in your browser, and you want to notify somebody that something's happened. Because it doesn't really make any other things. So what we need for that is kind of a real notification, something that's going to pop a little thing up in the corner of the screen, something that's going to remind people that there's your page there, that something's happened there, something's exciting. And so for that I'm talking about like real notifications, the kind of things that kind of look almost operating system-y. They can or may or may not be operating system based notifications, but they can exist. So I always like to obviously think about browser support for these kind of things. It's always important to know if you write some of this where it's actually going to work. And so support for real, like the web notification API has been in Chrome since version 22, Firefox since 22, Opera since version 25, and Safari on iOS 10.8 and above, and version 6 and above. The operating system level of that is important, but and then finally on Edge, I don't know if you can read that. It says under consideration, and that I know that's kind of a laugh, but under consideration is not the worst thing that could be, and I will go into that a bit later. The Edge team actually have they apparently have a medium kind of. They think they're going to do this. It's probably fairly likely, that kind of thing. So we can make notifications happen in all those other browsers. That's kind of cool. And how does that work? Let's go write some more code without putting mistakes into it this time. So I'm just going to uncomment a button for myself there, because notifications like this require permissions. You can't just start throwing things onto people's screens without them letting you. That's a bit harsh. And people should be able to ban you from doing that kind of thing. So I'm going to grab that button and use it to get some permissions for my notifications right now. And that's fairly easy. The web notification API uses the notification object. And on that we have the request permission API. That's a very simple method that just pops up that permissions thing. And I could put a callback into that, but I'm not... you put a callback in there which receives the result of the permissions thing, and so it has 3 possible answers: granted, denied, or something else. Default. Default you can't really get as an answer, but it's not particularly of use. It still means you can't do things, basically. You could put a callback in there, but I'm not going to because I'm going to approve it. So there'd be very little point in me finding out what I've done. What instead I'm going to do is, where we get our message off the stream, I'm going to check for that permission. And like I said, the permission is granted in this case. And if we have that, you can create yourself a notification object. And with that, we can use pretty much exactly the same stuff that we had earlier from our message, and put like kind of who's from in that. And then the notification takes 2 things. So that's the title from, and then you can pass an object full of stuff, which can include a body, as we're going to do right now, but also an image or a logo, so you can kind of make it obvious which application is sending this notification out. And it's fairly simple, really. It's fairly straightforward. This is all you need to do. Cool. So if I go back, refresh my page, I'll get my little button, and when I click that, that comes out a bit small, I think, but it says that localhost in this case wants to show notifications, so I'm going to allow that, that's wonderful. If somebody sends a tweet through now, we'll both get like the thing coming up at the top with a little yellow flash, and then a real actual notification appear on screen. Is somebody sending it? Good. What's interesting here is that at the top there is Monica Danescu, who works on the Polymer team, who ended up giving a talk about push notifications at the last conference I was at, and now she has a service where you can send notifications about cats, and it's very good. It's very useful. Has anybody signed? No. Okay. We haven't made this an interesting enough hashtag yet to come up. I'm getting interesting, like, Topconf push is the hashtag again. I'm getting interesting kind of like corrections in the keyboard here. It kind of like, it came up with 2 ongoing just now. Let's make this happen. That sent much quicker than my last one, and now we're going to see on screen
it's the Wi-Fi. I send it to me like 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's what's really weird. I mean, like the streaming API is normally pretty good for me. It's not come through on the stream, which is fun. If the Wi-Fi dies, there we go. That's happened again. All right, I'm going to give up on this one for right now, because I always come with handily prepared GIFs. This is what it looks like. Good stuff. That's what we're trying to achieve with this kind of thing. We get the thing in the top corner of our screen, and it's much nicer. Like a real notification. We can be sitting, on another browser, the tab's open, and we can be browsing something else. And a notification pops up, and you're like, that is something I wanted to know about. Somebody has tweeted something about Topconf right now. But that doesn't solve the issue in which the website, which wants to send notifications, is closed. You could, you close the tab, you move on somewhere else, even closing the browser. And that is that's the beauty of the idea of push notifications, is that it can wake that up. It can bring you back to the site that you want to know that information from, and show you things about it. And that's what we can use it for. And so in order to create something which can make things happen outside of the context of the site, even when a site is closed, we rely on the service worker. Who's heard of service workers in here? Got not many, 4 people, 5 people, 6, Mike said. Service workers are a wonderful new thing this year in browsers, and they are effectively a piece of JavaScript that will run in the background of the browser on behalf of the site that loaded them. And they can do a couple of things. They intercept web requests, and they allow you to send push notifications right now. They exist because the application cache, our previous way of making sites work offline, was widely kind of denounced as terrible, or as Jake Archibald said, a douchebag. If you haven't read his articles about how bad the application cache was, then you should, and it's a fun read or a fun watch if you find the talks. Effectively, it was application cache is very good at making sites work offline in the simplest of cases. And then in any kind of complicated case, it was very difficult. And actually, if you're interested in more offline stuff and how to make the application cache work for that, then Andrew Betts of the FT Labs is also a very good watch, very good person on that, because the FT were a company that made their offline application all web-based. They dropped out of app stores and went web first. And the amount of hoops and things they jumped through and problems they had in order to make the web work offline for them using the application cache was intense. So go find Andrew Betts and find out what he's had to say about that as well. So the application cache is terrible, and that brought about the existence of the service worker. It's a programmable way of dealing with basically like the browser cache. It's your way of dealing with that. And it makes it so much easier to make things offline and cache things and then destroy those caches when you need to. But it's not just for offline, and this is why I'm talking about it. Like the most use cases for the service worker right now are this offline ability, whereas we're talking about push notifications. And the thing is, we have this bit of JavaScript that runs in the background of our website when our site isn't even running, and because we have that, it has the ability to make these notifications happen again for us. It's going to run through the support again because this gets worse, of course. It's all very new stuff. So service worker support landed in Chrome version 40, which was the end of last year. It remains behind a flag in Firefox. They continue to be working on it. I think it's going to come unflagged. It's going to become part of Firefox, I think, in their next release. I hope so. Service workers are also supported in Opera 24. Safari, Apple, I don't know. They are famously quiet about what they're doing with their browser, and service workers are absolutely one of the things that they are not particularly, they've said nothing about as far as I can tell. So we don't know if Safari are interested in allowing us to get our sites offline using the service worker or allowing push notifications. They supported the application cache, and perhaps that burned them, and that's why they're not saying anything about this right now. In the Edge team, it's under consideration. I think under consideration is better than a question mark. I don't know about you all, but they are thinking about it, and you can go and you can influence the ideas of the Edge team by telling them that you are interested in service workers. They have a user voice page in which you can go and vote for features that you want to see in the Edge browser. And I encourage you all to go and find that and vote for service worker support. Push notifications did not come along with service workers initially. It actually took 2 more versions of Chrome before push notifications became a part of it as well. But in Chrome 42, and this counts for mobile Chrome, this is Android as well. So version 42 brought the advent of push notifications, It, again, is behind a flag in Firefox, and when they open that up, it'll be pretty exciting. Opera hasn't done much, as far as I know, in push notifications so far, and I can find nothing online about what they're thinking about it. Although I was privileged enough to give this talk to a conference in London, and Opera evangelist Bruce Lawson was sat in the front row, and he shouted at me, "Soon." So, soon is all I know. Safari. Safari on iOS 10.8 and above supports push notifications. You can, and it supports it using Message Center, Notification Center, on OS 10.8 and above. That's why it requires to be 10.8 and above, because there is no Notification Center and anything beyond that. But it's non-standard. It has nothing to do with service workers. It is more to do with the Apple push notification service, the kind of thing that you use to push notifications to iOS applications. And so you have to do crazy dances with certificates and Xcode and the App Store and things like that in order to make this work. And it's as I said, it's not a standard, and thus I do not support it. They should absolutely get on board with service workers and make this happen for real, not in some crazy way that they want to make it work. Equally, it does not work until there is no push notifications for Safari and iOS. The Edge team are thinking about it. They are thinking about it less than they're thinking about the original web notification API, which, again, I encourage you to go find the Microsoft Edge team's user voice page and vote for push notification support as well. The original notification API is probably going to go away and be replaced with the push notification. Sorry, the original notification API is probably going to go away and be replaced with this service worker-based one because it works better. It's kind of the same, but it works better. If you're interested in how service worker support is going, Jake Archibald has the Is Service Worker Ready page, which has a lot of APIs that service workers depend upon and that kind of support within major browsers. The Edge team has status.modern.ie, which is a wonderful treasure trove of web features that all the browsers are supporting, and it shows the kind of level of under consideration that the Edge team have for various things, and so it's also a good place to go and look for this kind of thing. But let's put some service workers into action right now. We're going to build this in so we can go close our Twitter notification site and still receive Topconf push notifications when we want to. So, firstly, we need to register our service worker. And somebody, I think on Twitter, I noticed it come by ask why I wasn't using const.let. It's because I really like var. I haven't quite understood exactly the positions in which you put const.let or var yet, so I'm sticking with var for now, and I'm working on that. But we're going to create ourselves a service worker. It lives on the navigator object. If you were doing this for everybody, you would probably do some work to work out whether the service worker does in fact exist, but because I know it does in this browser, I'm going to just go ahead and do this. So you register it and you give it the location of your file, which in this case is just /serviceworker.js, and that's lovely. So I'm just going to remove our actual notifications from old, and I'm actually going to turn off notifications over here, just to see that happen. So the push notifications via service worker will ask for the same permissions, and this is what we'll see in just a second. So that service worker I made actually returns a promise. That returns a promise, so we get a registration of our service worker when that promise resolves. Promises are also cool new things. And with that registration, we're going to ask its push manager for a subscription. We're going to subscribe to that. And to this, we need to pass an object of options. And there's one option that you need to pass right now, which is user visible only true. Not exciting, but I'll tell you why that is later. So we're just going to return that, and that means we can chain our promises, because when we subscribe there, that is the thing that's going to pop up our permissions notification. So when that resolves with an answer, we'll get, resolves with a positive answer, we'll come back into the next callback. So in that, we get ourselves a subscription. And with that subscription, what we get in this case now is an endpoint. The subscription comes with an endpoint. And that endpoint is a URL which you should be able to send a post request to in order to make the notification happen, in order to do the server-side part of the push notification. That endpoint, that's the theory anyway. Because this is all still under a lot of development, that doesn't quite work just yet. And so, because this only works in Chrome, we actually have to get hold of our endpoint and strip out the actual URL. And with that, we then get an ID. And that ID we can then use with Google Cloud Messenger, which is the push notification support for Android. Sure do. That allows me to do the string interpolation. You can't do that with normal quotes. So there we go. So what I'm going to do is take that endpoint and send it back to my server. I'm doing that using fetch. Fetch is a cool new way of doing AJAX or XML HTTP request that doesn't require you to gouge your own eyeballs out when doing XML HTTP request. It's a great. It returns promises again, so you get your callbacks and you get them in a nice way. This particular request is going to succeed, so I'm not going to listen for any of the callbacks. What it does is actually sends back to my my app here, which this is my endpoint, and this is where I take that endpoint and pull it apart, so I get the ID, and I save that as a registration ID. And that is what I will use later for Google Cloud Messenger. So when I have that registration ID, I can create a GCM message. This is just using a node module for Google Cloud Messenger, and send that off to my user. So that's all I need to do over here. My service worker is registered. I've asked for that push manager subscription. I now need to build my service worker. That's over here. So let's get going. The service worker refers to itself as self. Which is, I suppose, better than this, because no one would know what you were talking about at that point. So you can add event listeners to it. In this case, we're listening for the push event, that is, a notification has come through. And that's nice. So with that, we need to wait. We need that event to wait until we're done. This is part of that kind of user visible true option that I had to hand in, and basically when you are subscribing to do push notifications, you are saying we are going to send you notifications for events that happen. If you do not send that event, if you do not send a notification and make it somewhat visible to the user somehow that the event happened, then the browser is going to do it for you. It's part of the kind of contract of doing these notifications. So within our event, we tell it to wait until we've done the things we intended to do. And that is because I've got some more work to do here. I'm going to use fetch again, and this is one more endpoint on my server to fetch the latest tweet off of the API. I need to do this because currently, again, push notifications are kind of still new enough that they don't quite work. But you can add data to a message through Google Cloud Messenger. You cannot get that data back out in the service worker right now. So I'm just going to fetch that latest tweet off of the API and return that here. And so what's quite nice about the fetch API is that when you get data back, you can actually just call data.json, and that will parse it and return as a promise. So you can just chain back along and do the next thing. And with that, we'll then get our message. And with that message, we want to show a notification about it, right? So we call to our registration and use the show notification API. Now this will probably look fairly similar to something you've already seen. That's the notification API. And this is where I mean that the existing notification API is probably going to go away because this kind of replaces it. It's based on that registration about like full-on permissions, and when you have that registration, you can show notifications, and this is how it works. So again, we're just going to send it a title, a body, and you could send it an image or a logo as well, which would show it up to look as though it's coming from your application. And that's all we need to do there. We've sent the notification that returns the promise, and when it resolves, event.wait until it's happy, and the event is over. We're going to do one other thing as well, because when we click on that notification, we probably want to bring the user back into our application. So that is a part of the push notification as well. And we add one more event listener, which is the notification click event. And with that, we do kind of the same thing. We again have to wait just to make sure the service worker doesn't close down again before we've done what we want to do. And I'm just going to do something fairly straightforward, which is equal clients.open window and send it a URL. And that means when we click the notification, it's going to open straight back up on the site that we're building this on. Cool, so that's all that requires. I'm going to refresh that. If the Wi-Fi's really left me out, this is going to make a very sad end. I'm going to restart the server. There we go, cool. So we're going to click the notification, get the notification again, and that is, this is now calling to the service worker to say I would like to use your notifications. We're going to allow that again, and this is the final point, the exciting final part. So if we can send some tweets, start sending them in, we should start to see some notifications. Topconf push. Woo. All right, Topconf push, and it goes, no, I think you meant top confuse. That's not what I meant. I'm using the Twitter client. There we go. So I'm just going to close that. See if anything comes through. So as you can see, I don't know if you can see that. Bigger. At the bottom there is the endpoint that came through from my subscription. If you can read that, it says android.googleapis.com/GCN and sends and has this big URL. And we're not interested. Excuse me. Sadly, right for now with GCN, we're not interested in that whole URL. We're just interested in the large random string that's on the end, which is an ID. Apparently, this has stopped working as well. So I will do 1 minute just showing you. This is the current way of debugging service workers. I think just the internet has left me, so we're not going to make that happen, but I'll show you what happens in a minute. So this is my registered service worker. It's how it works, and you can actually start it. That should be interesting. And you can inspect them, which is kind of cool. You get the service worker in DevTools. So it's quite useful, although I believe the actual service worker DevTools is going into the actual Chrome DevTools, so you won't need to start that Chrome service worker internals page. This is what that would have looked like if it worked and the internet had stuck with me for the entire thing. You'd been able to, go ahead, get the notifications, allow that, close the page, and then things would still come through. And then going ahead and clicking on those notifications would bring the site back up, would reopen the browser, and get you back into the site. Rather sad the internet disappeared. I want to finish up very quickly with a little warning. We have this power, we have this ability to send notifications on the web right now. It's very exciting, but don't send terrible stuff. Don't send the things that Twitter ends up sending. It's, be good to your users. allow them to opt into notifications, allow them to opt into the notifications they want, because you're going to disappoint them very easily otherwise. And finally, this is a great kind of progressive enhancement. It doesn't work everywhere yet, but it is an enhancement. And it's an enhancement that you can use today. And Jake Archibald was delighted a couple of months ago when he found out that m.facebook.com is using these push notifications right now. And so if you don't want to install the Facebook app, if you're, if you're terrified about the kind of things they're trying to suck out of you when you install, say, the Android application, if you have mobile Chrome, you can go and accept push notifications from the web app. The code is up online. I will tweet these slides later, and you can go play with it yourself and watch it work. And I'm just going to run through a couple of quick things. Twilio has a conference up in next May. I'm not trying to sell tickets. I want to see you there speaking. We have a call for proposals. It's open to the end of the month, so please go and find out about Signal and submit talks. We also have an office here in Tallinn, and we're hiring wonderful engineers. Come and work for Twilio. That's also wonderful. And finally, if you could help me, if you are able to help me at all, it really helps to know if I've done any kind of job today. Then please, if you can send a text to this number and tell me on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely is it you would recommend this talk to a friend or colleague, that would be really useful. It's on the last slide as well. There we go. It's down the bottom here. So that is all I've got time for. In fact, I'm slightly over time. I apologize for that. My name is Nash, developer evangelist at Twilio, and I hope you use push notifications for good. Thank you very much.